And this is, I mean, Satan cannot say that these people are mine. He cannot say that. When they say, we disown you and the idols you worship beside God, we denounce you, and you will see nothing from us except animosity and hatred until you believe in God alone. And then we're given the example of Abraham and his father. However, a mistake was committed by Abraham when he said to his father, I will pray for your forgiveness, but I possess no power to protect you from God. Our Lord, we trust in you, we submit to you. To you is the final destiny. Our Lord, let's not be opposed by those who disbelieve, and forgive us. You are the Almighty, most wise. So I think we learn from this page that we just our stand must be firm, and it reminds us that we are here. All this trouble is because we rebelled. We did not make a firm stand on the side of God when the great feud happened. The jinns, for example, made a firm stand with Satan, and we didn't. We said maybe Satan can make it, can be a god. We did not make a firm stand with God. So this is our time to make up for it and to denounce that wishy-washy stand that we had in the past. Okay, verse 6. A good example has been set by them for those who seek God and the last day. As for those who turn away, God is no need of them, most praiseworthy. God may change the animosity between you and them into love. See what I mean when I said make your stand known orally, publicly, and tell them it's okay, you can study and examine the evidence until God guides you, but make it known. Number 7, God is omnipotent, God is forgiver, most merciful. And these relationships are regulated by the next 2 verses. It tells you exactly how to behave towards whom. Number 8 says, God does not enjoin you from befriending those who do not fight you because of religion, and do not evict you from your homes. You may befriend them and be equitable towards them. God loves the equitable. So these are not considered the enemies of God if they are not actively opposing you. They may be curious, they may be still looking, they may be still examining the evidence. You'll be able to tell if they are hostile or not. Number 9 tells you that God enjoins you only from befriending those who fight you because of religion, evict you from your homes, and band together with others to banish you. You shall not befriend them. Those who befriend them are the transgressors. If you are friends of somebody who's opposing God and His messenger, what does this tell about you? Yeah?
Wishy-washy.
Yes, or worse. Yes.
How shall we behave?
You have to make your stand very firm on the side of God alone. If somebody is idolizing Muhammad or Jesus or Mary or some saint with God, you have to make your stand known that you don't like that you are not their friends until they abandon their idolatry and dedicate themselves to God alone. Otherwise we will be like them. This is throughout the Quran we see this. If you don't do that, you are like them, as guilty as they are.
Yeah, for example, you work in the same office with them, and provided they don't bother you, pay your own way.
Yes.
They pay their own way, and they don't bother you. You meet
Right.
in the same restaurant.
Right.
You meet in the same clubs and all this kind of play the same game, perhaps as I play snooker in the
Yes.
evening. Provided they don't bother you, them.
They don't bother you, they're not fighting you, then
Yeah, you can
It's
talk
okay.
to them.
They're neutral.
yes,
Neutral, yeah.
they're neutral. There's still hope for them.
So there's no problem. You talk to them, you play around, joke with them,
Exactly.
religion aside.
Exactly. Yeah, verses 8 and 9 are really are the rule that covers the umbrella rule.
Can we do good to them? If an opportunity
If they're still neutral, yes. Especially if it's going to help them.
No, they declare themselves. They declare themselves that they are non-believers. Can we do good to them?
No, you better run away from them. Yeah, they declare themselves as unbelievers. You
Right,
better.
they need help,
No, you-
one kind or the other.
yes.
Help, some kind. Shall we help them?
Not if they declare themselves as unbelievers. They're enemies
They
of
have,
God.
They
Yes.
have.
Yes, you have to run away from them. You don't help
Don't
them.
help them.
No. This is what, let's read it again. Number 9. God enjoins you from befriending those who fight you because of your religion. Evict you from your homes and band together with others to banish you. Better yet, if you look at verse number 1, it says, O you who believe, you shall not befriend my enemies and your enemies. So a person who declared himself as an unbeliever is an enemy of God. It shows the opposite side. Unless you have something else in mind as far as declare themselves unbelievers. Can you be more specific?
For sure. Excuse me. How a person can be included in Numbers verse 8. These are not believers in faith.
But
They
they're
are
neutral.
disbelievers, and they are not actively fighting against believers. Because number 8, there are some people that they are not believers, but they do not believe, or maybe they are agnostic, maybe they are Christian or Jews, they worship, but they have no animosity, I would say enmity in their heart.
So no fighting, in other
They
words.
don't fight.
Will this define what you mean?
Exactly. We are extending love and friendship to them. There is a wide margin between love and friendship.
Yes.
I personally, as a good Muslim, would like to love my enemies. I do not know whether that enemy is the enemy of God, but it says both your enemies and my enemies.
Yes.
But I am specifying that there is a person I know that he is my enemy. I wouldn't call anyone my enemy, but I would say that this man has done bad to me. I would like to love him. I would respond by loving him.
Okay, is your enemy like in work circumstances?
Unless he goes a little too far by, as it says, that take my house, take my home away, then of course I would retaliate differently.
Okay, if it is personal friction,
Yes.
the Quran actually tells you to love your enemy.
Yes,
I mean, if it's a personal matter, like for example, he built his fence
Yes.
inside your territory instead of half a yard inside your territory or something. This has nothing to do with God. And in fact, I don't know if the Arabic will mean anything to you. يَدْرَؤُونَ بِالْحَسَنَةِ السَّيِّئَةِ. In other words, if something does bad to you, you does good to them. Perhaps he will become your friend in the future. But here we're talking strictly religion, as far as worshipping God alone is concerned.
Yes.
So when you say my enemy,
The ultimate would be that he may turn to be a believer, because I am a
Yes.
believer.
right, if you mean by my enemy is personal animosity, that is, the Quran tells you to do good to them, to love your enemy. But because you'll be fighting for your sake, not for God's sake. This is why the verse starts with my enemies. God is saying my enemies first. You shall not befriend my enemies and your enemies.
Because the enemy is also sure our enemy.
That's right.
Because the person
So-
who believes.
The love and hate should be for the sake of God, not for our personal sake.
And these are not all idol worshippers, it's only the ones that actively fight.
Yes. Yes. You know, let us face it, when we grew up, they taught us idolatry, idol worship. We grew up as idol worshippers. All of us, this generation anyway. The new generation is cleaner than we are. But you give them a chance to see the truth. So if they're not fighting you, there is hope that someday may be better than you and me.
But
Yes.
quite right. Yes, I was telling you, stay in the same office, you share the same restaurant and all these things, and they are neutral, and they happen to be in need of some help. Now, won't you help them in such a situation?
You help them if they're not fighting you. If
Yeah,
they're not
if
actively
they-
fighting
they are
you, you help them, yes.
And in case, they need your help.
Yes. Look on them as potential believers.
Yeah, check
You're
it
trying
out.
to woo them, actually.
Yeah, okay.
Yes.
You can help them in such a
Yes.
situation. You can befriend them, help them.
That's what verse 8 is saying.
Yes, yeah.
Say, God does not prohibit you from befriending those who are not fighting you and not evicting you from your homes. Fighting you because of religion, excuse me, I have to add that 3 words.
Yeah.
Because of religion, not because of personal matters.
Rashad, throughout the Quran, we see that we read that we should respect the relative.
Regard the relatives.
Regard
Yes.
the relative. And if one of our relatives is idol worship,
You disown them. No, excuse me, go on. I'm fighting you. I'm sorry. Yes.
if they declare that they believe in, they put Muhammad
Yes.
beside God, they declare,
But they're not fighting you.
but they are not fighting.
Fine.
But
It's okay. You can be their friends and love them and everything, and try to woo them to worshiping God alone.
In Jahadat, because in Jahadat,
Yes.
that time you will come.
That's what home. You don't even fight them.
Yes.
This is
that's
about the
it.
parents.
Only if they struggle against.
Yeah,
you,
no, she's
they
talking about
fight.
relatives, like cousins, aunts, nephews, nieces,
But
right?
even if your parents, if they fight you, you still have to respect them
That's right. But you don't obey them in
in that particular.
that particular idol worship situation.
is there any difference between which relatives that you asking?
Yeah, the parents have a special position. The parents, God says, don't say oof to them.
So if they are idol worship, you should.
But God gives you permission to disobey them if they are forcing you to commit idolatry. Say, you must mention Muhammad and Ibrahim in your prayer, for example. You don't obey them. Say, okay, mom or dad, just keep. I understand your opinion and I appreciate your situation, but I'll do it my way.
Yeah.
It's my neck.
Yeah, it's like mine. They disagree with my being here, but they're not being
Of course, they don't know anything about us
No, they
anyway.
they just kind of. I sent them some information, but they don't want to look at it. They refuse to.
Okay, let's see what the rest of the surah says. Verse 10, in case of war, O you who believe, when believing women abandon the enemy and ask for asylum with you, you shall test them. God is fully aware of their belief. Once you establish that they are believers, you shall not return them to the disbelievers. They are not lawful to remain married to them, nor shall the disbelievers be allowed to marry them. Give back the dowries that the disbelievers have paid. You commit no error by marrying them, so long as you pay them their due dowries. Do not keep disbelieving wives if they wish to join the enemy. You may ask them for the dowry you had paid, and they may ask for what they paid. This is God's rule. He rules among you. God is omniscient, most wise. This probably will never apply to us, but what this is saying is when two camps are fighting, one camp are disbelievers, another camp is believers, and some women on the disbeliever side join the believers, you do not have to obtain an official divorce for the women. You can consider them divorced without any official action. And the same if women from the believer's side decide to disbelieve and join the disbelievers' camp, God is actually telling the believers to give them back their dowries and divorce them. this is what they want. Number 11, if any of your wives join the enemies, I was a little ahead of myself. If any of your wives join the enemy's camp and you are forced to fight, you shall force the enemy to compensate the men who lost their wives by giving them what they spent on their wives. You shall reverence God in whom you believe. Number 12, O you prophet, when the believing women who abandoned the disbelievers who seek asylum with you pledge to you that they will not set up any idols beside God, nor steal, nor commit adultery, nor kill their children, nor fabricate any falsehood, nor disobey your righteous orders, you shall accept their pledge and pray to God to forgive them. God is forgiver, most merciful. Now, when number 12 says, "Oh, you prophet," what does this tell us? Because this is at the time of the Prophet Muhammad. It is not applicable to us. Starting at verse 10. Number 13, "O you who believe, do not befriend people with whom God is angry." This repeats verse 1 and verse 9. "O you who believe, do not befriend people with whom God is angry and who are hopelessly stuck in disbelief." It's very important, hopelessly stuck in disbelief. You have to use your own judgment if there is hope that the person may become a believer or not. And if there is hope that the person may become a believer, you better be as diplomatic as you can to help them. You have a lot at stake, by the way, when you do that. Because when you help somebody come to the truth, you get a lot of credit. So God gives us incentives, lots of positive incentives to do that. So if you sense that there is hope that the person may become a believer, you should be as diplomatic as can be, and you use your own judgment in that.
This well, why the Mark and Pittsburgh, this is the pledge they make women take when they
But there's no war, yeah. This is in case of war. Yes. Yes, I know. They do all kinds of strange things. Hey! You made it.
Wow.
Come on in, come on in. Salam. Come on. Here, come here. How was the trip?
Oh, excellent. Hi. Salam. Sorry, we got it locked. Sorry.
No, it's fine.
The door was locked, I thought everyone is locked.
With whom God is angry, these are the criteria. And who are hopelessly stuck in disbelief. Hopelessly stuck in disbelief. They are just as hopeless as the disbelievers who are already in the graves. In other words, there's absolutely no hope for them, therefore you cannot befriend them. This is where you have to use your own judgment.
Patience.
Yes.
You have to keep pursuing.
Yes.
Give up.
There he is. He's here. This is Montana.
Very glad to be here.
The Canadian group were asking about you.
Yes. I hug everybody later. Hi,
Promise?
how are you?
Promise?
Yes. If you accept our very close and
Yes.
okay.
Let us finish the page 551. The Surah 61, the column of Saf. In the name of God, most gracious, most merciful. Glorifying God is everything in the heavens and everything on earth. Think about that. Can we keep the kids quiet somehow? Tell them to lower their voices. Glorifying God is everything in the heavens and everything on earth. The carpet, the walls. Glorifying God. I think we went into details of this before. Feroz is kind of surprised. This carpet is made of certain atoms,
All right.
and every atom has a certain number of electrons, and the electrons are rotating in specific orbits, and this is God's law, so they are glorifying God. In Surah 17, God says, وَإِن مِّن شَيْءٍ إِلَّا يُسَبِّحُ بِحَمْدِهِ. There is nothing that does not glorify God, even the disbelievers. And the rest of the verse, yes, says, we do not understand their glorification.
Right.
So the disbelievers' body, the disbelievers cannot control the heartbeats, or the lungs breathing.
Only difference is they're doing it unwillingly.
Right.
Rashad,
Yeah.
that gives an interesting example of shadow.
Yes.
That they disbelieve God, they think they disobey God, but their shadow obey God's rule and go to.
Yes. I was just writing a footnote about this yesterday, and I said that the solar clocks bear witness to that. There's a solar clock here in the university in front of the observatory. And it's very accurate, which is based on the shadow. It tells you exactly what time it is. It's an eternal clock. So, glorifying God is everything in the heavens and everything on earth. He is the Almighty, most wise. O you who believe, why do you say what you do not do? Most abominable in the sight of God is that you say what you do not do. So if you're asking somebody to do the 5 prayers, you better be doing them yourself. Number 4, God loves those who fight in His cause to be united in one column, like the bricks in one wall. There shouldn't be any differences. You have to be one. And this is why we see in Surah 6 that God condemns sectarianism. God says those who divide their religion into sects do not belong with God or the Prophet. And they hear this practically every day, but they still say, I'm a Shafi'i, I'm a Maliki, I'm a Hanbali, I'm a Sunni, I'm a Shi'i, Ahmadi. Yes. Barbara, what are you? MashaAllah, yes. I don't think we have any trouble under this roof saying who we are.
A lot of people, like at work, they ask and stuff. A lot of them, they just think, well, it's just another sect. And you go back and you explain it, it's hard with that.
The only thing they know. But you go to any typical masjid in any Muslim country, and under the same roof you're going to find different sects.
Oh, today, Rashad, that Arab came.
Is he an Arab?
Yes, he was Yemeni. And he came because he said, now this masjid, that masjid, there are a lot of hatred and bad things I hate there, I don't like, I want to make research, and he came to, only for these reasons, they have trouble there.
Yes, they always do. They have fist fights. This is in every masjid, I know. So this surah entitled the Saf, the column, like the bricks in one wall. Recall that Moses said to his people, O my people, why do you hurt me even though you know that I am God's messenger to you? When they deviated, God diverted their hearts, for God does not guide the wicked people. So that's it. And then we're open to general discussions. Any questions, Azar? I don't believe it. Yes? Yesterday I asked, do you have any questions? I said, how are you?
إن الذين فرقوا دينهم وكانوا شيعا
6159.
150.
Is there any specific rule that men always have to share or just in public or in your own house?
This is the way it came to us, order from Abraham. And usually, if God wants to set a precedent for the subsequent generations, God would create a situation or circumstances that will force this issue, and then we'll have a precedent that a woman is leading the prayer. But that never happened, and the innovations are a very serious matter. So just so not start any innovation, we're keeping this this rule.
But I think in my own house, does my father always have to stand here and side by side?
I would say yes, because of this same reason. This has been always the rule, and any change in it would be an innovation. So it's not worth it. It's not worth it. But from the logical point of view, a woman leading the prayer is not the woman is dignified, and there will be more distracting for the men. It's very dangerous to start a new innovation, something new. Yes.
There are three places that
That's a bad question.
we talk about.
No, go ahead. Just kidding.
It talks about cuts in Quran. One is when they're cutting the thief's hand.
Yes.
The other one when Joseph, those ladies cut their hands. And there's the third one that Pharaoh tells those people who follow Moses to cut your hands and feet from alternate sides. Well, I don't know, but I mean, my question is the third one similar to the first or the second? So
Neither.
Pardon?
The word used for Joseph and the women, and 19 verses later in Surah Joseph, and also cutting the hand of the thief, that's the same word.
Same word.
But the word used for the people who commit gross crimes and fight God, and the word that Pharaoh is using is different. Is qata'a and qatta'a. You see the difference?
I don't know.
No, listen, just listen to the voice. Qata'a. This is the root for the hand of the thief. But for the people who commit gross crimes, it's qatta'a.
So the thief and Joseph basically exactly the same.
Right. Same word, exactly.
What's the fourth one?
It is Rashad said,
Qatta'a.
the people that fight against believers, they could be killed, and also.
Oh, that's the same one that Pharaoh.
Yes, like.
Will commit heinous crimes. Stealing is a very specific crime.
Yes, the difference is very important because this root qatta'a is strongly punishment.
Yeah.
The word fa'ala yufa'ilu taf'il means to make it stronger. The other is qatta'a.
God give us mathematical evidence. So.
Hello, Shah.
Yes.
Earlier this afternoon when we were studying, the question came up about Juma prayer. If you came in and the first part of the first khutbah was given already, how many rak'ahs do you have to make?
2.
You missed
Could
two.
you talk about, elaborate a little, because it wasn't a very forward answer.
This is a straightforward answer. If you miss the whole khutbah and come with the people having doing the 2 rak'ahs, you do only 2 rak'ahs. Because you went to the place, and chances are you're going to ask the people what was the subject, what did they talk about. You'll be discussing it. Also, you're praying in a congregation, so the credit carries over, in other words.
If you're alone on Friday,
You cannot pray. Yes.
So even though you missed the whole thing,
If you give yourself a khutbah, you'll be accused of being a schizo. See, the word Juma by definition is group. Yes, go ahead. You have a guest for one night.
Yes,
Because you came too early.
she's over there. Yes. She's over
Go
there.
ahead.
Yes.
No, she wasn't. There she is. Yeah, go ahead and do you need people to help you move in?
No, tomorrow.
We have great muscles, see? Sheikh Mahmoud's muscles and Qassim's and Adib's.
Not tomorrow, inshallah. We have to take the
How
car
about this?
out.
We'll carry.
A truck?
Yes, let's say when? Tomorrow morning?
Yes, we
Tonight?
have to take the... No, not tonight because they're closed. We have to take the car in. I'm pulling my car with it. We have to get it out of there.
Okay.
And then bring the car back.
Just say when and we'll be here. Inshallah. Atif? No, he's gone.
Thanks.
Yeah.
person in this life because he's sharing
Exactly.
May I?
Go ahead.
This is a good point, but if you think further, God is capable to create a system that even if everybody is equal, and also can they survive. God is this God system now we're talking about, but God can create another system that even everybody could survive on the earth.
But we'll talk about the system we have now.
Okay, but it is possible for God. But why God decided on the system? I have also additionally another answer. The final is the most important thing. The test, the objective of the test, worship God alone. Everything, for example, to be poor or to be rich. You can see many rich people. They do not see the message because they are rich. They are proud. They don't involve. They don't take care. But many people they accept. Sometimes differently, and this test, all poor to be poor or to be rich has the same disadvantage and advantage. If you look at the perspective of the test and the final result, they all have the same, let's say different but equal problems and equal advantages.
What is happening to communism today? Communism failed. There Karl Marx and said everybody all people have to be equal. Didn't work. Nasser destroyed Egypt using this principle. Because all of a sudden the boss will call somebody to do something. Say, no, I'm not going to do it. I'm just like you. And the whole country stopped from that moment.
I think if the system was what Edith said, everything was equal and so on, and God would make it work also the other way, then we would have said, why God is not just, it's boring, everything is the same, why is
That's right, yes.
It's not exactly, it was the condition we accepted to come over here. For example, I asked God to send me over here. I'm going to have this much problem or the poverty or everything, but still I want to glorify you. Somebody asked me, okay, you send me over there, make me change, still I'm going to glorify you or purify. I mean, it's the only condition we accepted before you came to this time. It's the vote.
Say it again.
Okay. Before we came to here,
yes.
We accept all of things is going to happen for us. They say, God, send us to this world. For everything bad or good is going to happen for us. Still, we are going to glorify you. Of course, some of us believe, some of us not. It's something we accepted that way.
We accepted the freedom of choice. We didn't. If you.
For example, one day you said, for example, the horse comes to this world and this.
Oh, I see. Yes. Those submitted. Yeah, they submitted to God. The horse, the dog, the stars, the trees.
You will have, for example, a lot of hard time this moment. They accept to come over here.
Not necessarily. They just decide to submit, and they've come to this world and perform certain functions in total submission. But we didn't know what we were in for. It's okay. Materials of this world, all that the disbelievers get. If it were not that all the people might become one disbelieving congregation, we would have granted everyone who disbelieves in the most gracious mansions with silver roofs and stairs upon which they could climb. So because this is all they get in this world, God's saying, you know, their destiny is so awful in the hereafter, that God wishes to give each one of them a few $1 million and a mansion and let them have fun here for 60 or 70 years. Because after that they're heading for hell. But then the test will become more difficult for the believers.
We read in the Quran that rich believer is better than poor. But throughout the Quran also we read that material is nothing it's hereafter is better. But how come God is telling us that rich to be rich is better than to be poor?
Okay, let us say we're all poor. We're all believers. We're all believers and we barely make it. We're very poor. How will you print this Quran, for example? It's a good thing that we have this here, and we sent it to Hajj Ali coming all the way from Nigeria because he received the message in the Quran and books. Yes, doesn't make any difference. Your dollar is already assigned to you, but go ahead and ask. The reason go ahead and ask, and God says so, is because it's a form of worship. When you ask God, but it will not make any difference. The dollars from birth to death are already assigned. Ask John about that.
Experience.
Yeah, good.
Old man.
But as it is with the believers, you're guaranteed all your needs, your health, your wealth, guaranteed a perfect life if you're a believer. And you may have zero in the bank, but you will not worry, and you'll have peace of mind, and the IRS cannot touch you. You have your money deposited up there. Yeah.
And the title that the rich believers better than poor believers, something is open to abuse or abuse. I think
anything is open to abuse.
Excuse me?
Anything is open to abuse. Anything, believe me.
Something that may be too open for abuse, and people try and they just against each other according to their money, and this becomes, as I would say, like a company. Who has more money has a great thing, the respect, and I don't know, that's something I feel.
That's what God said. Remember that the common denominator is believer. The rich believer is better than the poor believer.
There is encouragement. I think it could be told in different ways.
Yeah.
For example, believers try to be rich, must try to be rich, and
yes.
Work hard, not
yes.
be lazy.
You're not trying to be rich?
This is excuse me?
You're not, listen up a minute. You're not trying to be rich?
Who?
You.
How do you know?
I'm asking you. He's criticizing trying to be rich. Okay, now you're not trying to be rich? Do you want to be rich? I'm not excusing you.
But I think he said this is a good point. He said this is good.
No, he's saying it's not a good point.
No, I think he said
Trying to be rich. Is that good or bad?
Depends on your priority. If you have other things to do, first of all,
yes.
You choose this and later.
Okay, let's take you for example. Do you want to be rich?
Sure, I want to be rich.
Why?
Well, why not?
I'm glad you're watching up away.
Sure, it's a good thing.
Yes.
But it is not just.
All right, so we agree.
Sure.
So God said.
Yeah, for believers to be rich, sure, it's better to be poor, but.
Yes, thank you very much.
Put in this way, there are sometimes expression of a faith.
Yes.
If sometimes.
You don't want to say the rich believer is better than the poor believer?
It's something funny.
Yes, Hajj Alabi.
I think, yes, a rich believer is better than a poor believer in the sense that for the rich believer appreciate the gift that are given to him as it's from God, and then use these gifts in the cause of God,
Exactly.
charity, building mosques, in the cause of God generally, and do his other obligations, knowing very well that all these things are not his own making, not his own education, intelligence, wisdom,
Charity,
but they are from the Almighty Allah.
I'm telling you, it's not easy to be a rich believer. More difficult. Did you know that? It is more difficult. It is more responsibility. And I'll give you the example of Solomon. Okay, Solomon was very rich. Was the richest human alive. And he became distracted with his horses. What did he do?
Yes.
He got rid of his horses. Yes.
But by this way,
So it's very difficult because you get distracted.
by this way, can we say Solomon is better than Job because he was rich believer? If we put this as a criteria, he was a richest.
Yes, the rich believers, listen, there's nothing can know about the rich believer being better than the poor believer because God said so. So we can only debate on some details, but the principle, God already said the principle. The rich believer is better than the poor believer, Surah 16. We cannot fool around with the principle, but you can discuss.
These rich people are usually more difficult
Yes,
to get into. Become a true believers.
because they don't need God. This I'm using you as an example. Okay. Is it better for you to be poor or rich? You, as a believer. You're the same believer. Your belief in God is certain, inshallah. It will never change. Now, is it better for you to be poor or rich? For all concerned. Answer my question first and then
Let me.
no, but
First of
is
all,
it better to be, for you, to be poor or rich, in your opinion? Is it better to be rich or poor?
Sure.
Sure what? Yes.
There's one point, Rashad.
Yes.
The word believer is not something, it is very relative subject. For example, there are maybe two believers, both of them believers, but one of them is more appreciated, but God didn't give it. God says, I give you, I will say, if God...
No, we're talking about equal believers. In belief, they're both believers.
Rashad,
You've reached the top as far as belief is concerned.
God says.
Right. Both of them are in the same taqwa, same belief, same degree of taqwa. Now, which one is better?
We cannot say this.
Why not? That's what God is saying. We're talking about two equal. Go ahead. You have some very good arguments.
Let's say there are two people. We both spend same amount of time for instance, thinking about God, for example, read the Quran and whatever that you think is being right. To me, I think they want, because they both have even the same knowledge. One can be lazy and say, okay, I need 8 hours of sleep. And I do whatever I do, and I only work for example 8 hours. The other one is okay, I sleep only 6 hours, I work harder, and if that's the reason that he became richer or he has more money, then to me that person work harder. And we can say yes, if their belief are the same, they are both righteous, their belief are the same, yes, that one is better because he work harder and achieve whatever what we have.
No, even without working harder, say I want to, because I've seen people who don't work at all and they're very rich anyway. Yes, but if they are both believers, then the rich man, according to the Quran, what God is telling us is that the rich has a better chance to be charitable, to help the others, to publish the Quran or whatever. The things that need money, the things that need money.
And the poor believer, there's another problem. If one is poor, and if you are really a believer, imagine coming home, and they should come home, you fully well know that there is no food in the house, and time for bed, just coming home around the sunset prayers, and you have 4 or 5 kids in the house with the wife, and you went out to work, you coming home, you couldn't get anything, and when you come into the house with the kids crying all over the places, and the wife making faces. You can hardly think of praying a Muslim prayer at that time.
Yes.
But
Distracting.
rich man, you don't have any of these problems. And the moment you come home, you know the food is there, the kids are playing with their motorbikes and all these things. You go straight in and perform your ablution.
You concentrate on the prayer.
Yes.
Yes. That also. Anyway, we cannot fool around with the principle that the rich believer is better than the poor believer. Edip wants to make a lot of money so he can publish a translation in Turkey and build a mosque in his hometown and buy a few dresses for Aquaman. He's going to be a millionaire, inshallah.
Is it possible believer be rich?
Yes?
No.
Huh? No?
I don't think so, no.
Why? Solomon was a believer. He was very, 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 very rich.
One year.
Huh?
One day was but I don't think a believer could be rich because when you get believer, I don't think you'll be able to be rich.
Why?
Because you are going to buy the other book. You know you are going to visit the God, see the God, meet the God. So I think you are going to put all of your money in the right way.
No,
but
not necessarily.
You will be rich.
But he'll be rich then. If he's spending all his money, he's rich. This. Also, we don't know how much money is written for us. So we have to work as hard as possible. It's God's perfect system.
Only one knows how much
Yes.
assigned to you.
Yeah, we don't know. So we have to knock on all the doors. And one of them, some of them, the right ones will open. But you have to knock.
No way he cannot be rich. This Sarhat. Sarhat think of himself, I think, because he's working for God.
Well, you never know. Can somebody push the door? It's getting cold. It's rascal.
Isn't poor and rich relative to the place that the poor and rich people is? It said just now about Solomon and Job. Job was rich within where Job was, what richness meant.
So Job was rich, period.
He was very wealthy
Yes.
for Job. So
No, period. He was very wealthy, period. He became poor for a while.
right, and then he
became twice as rich.
rich.
Yes.
Right. So even though he wasn't as wealthy as Solomon, he was a wealthy person within that time. So poor and rich have to be relative to where poor and rich really is. Because in some places, rich may mean $1 million, and that's really wealthy. It can do just as much as $10 million may be able to do in another place. So poor and rich is relative to the place that it is. I think the statement of a rich believer is better than a poor is a very good character building statement for a believer. It gives you the need to strive. It makes you want to build yourself to do something, and it makes you want to give.
Yes, definitely. Okay, I think we'll stop here. We usually read 2 pages every morning, and then we're open to discussion. Yes.
When God says rich believer is better than poor, it means in this book, isn't it?
Yes.
Not hereafter.
Why? Also the hereafter. There will be ranks in the hereafter. I think this is where heaven and hell, we can think of it if we apply the terms of this world. a ditch digger out when it is 110 degrees here in Tucson and somebody's digging ditches out there. He's hoping that he will save enough money someday to import cheese from Greece and sell it here. Stop. In other words, there is a hope that this will end the ditch digging. But if in the hereafter, a ditch digger is a ditch digger forever. There's no hope. This is why it is hell. So there are ranks over there, and when the people in hell are assigned those low ranks, they know that this is forever. There's no promotion.
God also saying that closest to God is the most righteous.
Yes.
I think
over there, in the hereafter, there will be ranks. In fact, we have 3 general ranks. Okay, we have the high heaven, we have the low heaven, and then we have hell. So God gives us descriptions of the high heaven and the low heaven. In the high heaven, the water flows. In the low heaven, you have to pump, you have to work for it. Right? So that's the difference. Yeah, Surah 55, God describes the high heaven and the low heaven. And God says in the high heaven, the water flows like a spring. It's right there, ready. But in the lower heaven, you have to pump. It's all, of course, allegory, relative. You have to work for the water. God tells us in the high heaven there is all kinds of fruit. In the lower heaven there is a limited number of fruit. God names certain fruits. But in the high heaven God says there's all kinds of fruit. So there are ranks and limitations even there.
I give it the ranks. God does say that closest to me is the most righteous.
Right.
So I don't see any mention about the bell. That's my question.
So the closest to God will be in the high heaven.
No, I think
You talk about the hereafter?
Yes.
Yeah, the closest to God will be in the high heaven.
They are righteous, more righteous.
More righteous, not the most righteous and wealthy.
I think let me.
Yeah, but this implies being in the high heaven means wealthier,
Yeah.
richer.
I think what he's asking is, does wealth here relate to wealth in the hereafter?
The richness of this world is different from the richness of the other.
Okay, you're saying that a rich believer here can be in a lower rank than a poor believer here? Over there?
I think that
that's right. You're right. It's not necessarily the same. If you take 2 believers, one is rich and one is poor here, this may be reversed over there. But in any case, yeah, I think I understand the question now. But in any case, it is fantastic triumph to be in the lower heaven or the high heaven over there. Yes. And there is no jealousy. There's no jealousy, and there is no. Everyone is perfectly happy. The jealousy will be erased from the dictionary in the heaven, in the high heaven or the low heaven.
What do you mean?
You just know there.
The feelings of ecstasy and joy and happiness. Yes.
Rashad,
Yes.
my 11-year-old son was asking me, why do you have to eat in heaven? Do you age? Do you change? For example, if I die at age 14.
You don't eat in heaven.
So why there are fruits? Why God is telling you another?
No, it's all allegory. There are no fruits.
Just to make us understand, if you
There are no trees and no fruits. Unless you want to, you can make them if you want to. Just look at them and reminisce about the first life.
Rivers of milk
and honey and wine. It's all allegory.
Because we don't know what's real. We never see it.
Then we like it here, but this is the closest.
Yes.
You can describe something you've never seen.
For example, hell, the allegory is hell, very high, and in the middle of it there is a tree. And if you accept tree here, like that we know, and fire that we know, the tree in the fire is contradiction. It's only allegory.
Yeah, but in the Quran it said in the hereafter, when they see some kind of fruit, they remember and say this is exactly what God gave us the first time. The first time is not this life. The first time they remember exactly in the heaven. Yeah.
No, it's God says in the same verse that we thus give them allegorical descriptions.
Yeah. Okay, but still.
وَأُوتُوا بِهِ مُتَشَابِهٍ.
Okay.
Yes.
That I'm talking.
Oh no no.
متشابهات.
به متشابها. Her understanding is just different.
The same, yes, I know.
It's different.
We used to understand it this way.
Yes, we used to understand it. Very much. وأوتوا به متشابها. We had
It's allegorical.
given a similar not similar to.
This is an amazing play of words.
God says they have been given an allegory of
Yes.
paradise. This is expressing the meaning.
Yes, look at this word mutashabihan.
Yes.
And the way God used it, it's amazing. Okay, mutashabihan means similar. Mutashabihan also means allegorical. So if people want to believe that they mean this will get apples like the apples here and bananas like the bananas here, fine, they will understand it that way.
Rashad,
What I thought we say.
By itself an
allegory, yes.
verse.
No, I said if the people, like in the past.
No, but Rashad, I mean, when I read this, I thought this is the allegory of the fruit, for example, but not the same as this here, the light. The first, we remember in the day of resurrection, the heaven, everything, and we remember there, not here.
Yes. Oh, okay.
And they say, oh,
okay, she's ahead of us, yes. No, she's ahead of both of us. Wonderful. Their babies are supposed to be asleep at this time. I mean, look at John, he's not awake yet.
I can't.
Huh?
I can't.
MashaAllah.
When you are teaching, starting to teach, and after you said, okay, anybody have this question? Okay. And I think maybe when you teach us, and better to not, because I was the one that I interrupt that I say something, but it's not better to just listen and you teach, and after finish you just
no, because this brings up lots of points.
Because you forget the question.
No. Water is the vast majority. You talk about the solid mass of the planet Earth. If you take the solid mass and compress it, the water will be 9 times as many, like 90%.
Anyway, my suggestion was this, that living creatures, because double here, living creatures.
No, there is that in the earth, even the Earth.
Also, Rashad, for example, stars.
Yes.
Stars, also creature of God.
Yes.
For example, there is no water in the sun. And I think it's
actually there is. You know what the sun is made of?
Hydrogen.
Hydrogen. And what's the water made of?
Hydrogen.
There is no way around it. Hydrogen oxygen, it's H2O. Adib has the flies. He has a pocket full of flies. He puts in the oatmeal always.
What is this?
We will never tell you. Just don't change. Stay as
Someday you might say something important. So we don't want to miss anything. Keep on saying.
God created every data. He has a good point. Actually, Edith has a very good point. Because God talks about the creatures that walk on their bellies like snakes, or 2 or 4. So God is talking about living creatures. It's a very good point that Edith is raising. But I like to give him rough time once in a while. See how far I can push it. Because what makes this, he's talking about the stars and the sun and so on. But what makes this restricted to living creatures, like he said, is that God says some walk on 2 legs and some walk on their bellies. Now living organisms are 85 to 99% water. We talk about plants, animals, and humans. 46. And life cannot sustain without water in those creatures, all of them. This is the one thing that's common to all living creatures is water. 46. We have sent down to you clarifying revelations. Then God guides whomever He wills in a straight path. God sends instructions through His messenger. They say, we believe in God and in the messenger, and we obey. But then some of them turn away. They are not believers. When they are invited to God and His messenger to judge among them, some of them get upset. Very best knows that, huh? Quite a few of them. However, if the judgment is in their favor, they readily accept it. Is there a disease in their hearts? Are they doubtful? Are they afraid that God and His messenger may treat them unfairly? In fact, it is they who are unfair. Believers unhesitatingly obey God and His messenger. In 51, the only utterance of the believers whenever invited to God and His messenger to judge in their affairs is to say, we hear and we obey. These are the winners. Those who obey God and His messenger and reverence God and observe Him, these are the triumphant ones. They swear by God solemnly that if you commanded them to mobilize, they would mobilize. Say, do not swear. Obedience is an obligation. God is fully cognizant of everything you do. My own experiences with this is, for example, the issue of 40 years when it surfaced. There was so much opposition to it, mainly because we are mean creatures. Why does God put them in heaven? Put them all in hell. This is what they were telling me. And they argued, and we had to use a lot of discussion back and forth, which wasted a lot of time and effort. So had they say we hear and we obey, and then take off from that point, they would have saved a lot of time and effort. They would have saved themselves a lot of time. So this why God said the only utterance of the believers whenever invited to God and His messenger to judge in their affairs is to say, we hear and we obey. These are the winners, because they save their time and effort. There were quite a few people, this issue dragged with them for almost a year. And the funny thing is, some of them, I thought they accepted it. And then a year later, I found that they didn't. They're still having trouble with it.
That doesn't mean that they should not question anything or accept it without...
In fact, I did say now they should question it, but after accepting it. In other words, God says so, okay, we accept it. Now let us see. Why is God setting the age of 40? And why isn't it 45 or 30? We can discuss that, but after accepting it and knowing it. But what I found was they actually could not accept it. It didn't make sense to them. And I tell them, okay, well, give me the line. Where is the line, the cutoff line of responsibility? Is it 6 years? And when somebody dies at the age of 7, does he go to, is he responsible? Or at the age of 17? 21? What is it? I mean, give me there's no age in the Quran except 40 for the age of responsibility. In other words, they were just objecting without having an alternative.
So
yes.
There's no age that you can start prayer and you're obligated to fast or anything like that?
Oh yeah.
There's an age like that?
Mm-hmm. There's an age. Mm-hmm.
Which age is that?
That's about 1 week. True.
What does that mean?
Explain yourself. You explain. Explain to others, to me.
Well, you have to read the hand.
Yes.
What hand was do today?
Did you see how he prayed? No, he started, I assure you, he started before 1 week. Actually, our babies start before they're born.
The tooth start from the hospital came right here.
Yes.
Before he was home.
He came here before house.
When he knows how to stand up, he will stand up. As soon as he can stand up, he will get paid.
No age. Just grows.
Well, listen, Egypt's baby is not even 1 week yet, and he or she is listening to the Quran. Did you know that?
Well, I understand. deciding that it's obligated, if you don't do it, it's a sin. So it would be 40, so if you don't pray until 40, you're not committing any sin.
No, but you see, Hani will gain from this what he's doing, from his prayer. Because this is my personal experience, for example. I started like Hani, and I never quit, and I think I'm benefiting from this.
My father is a better to
I think
the
that
mosque. Or father, every day.
the question that Asir asking is
Maybe.
Maybe is asking is if you say the point how do you say responsibility age is 40, we cannot ask people that younger than 40 you pray. Oh, they will say we have.
How do they make a decision?
But
If they know that the person is going to die before 40, then
let me, the point, Rashad, there we misunderstand. Age 40 is the maximum age, the maximum limit, which if you, for example, if I am before 40, I heard a message, I know the truth. If I try to abuse it, God knows my innermost thoughts, and God will mislead me, and I may lose my chance to be believer after 40.
Yes, there's more to it than that. There's more to it than this also. Although it will not happen, but theoretically, if a person is a strong believer at the age of 20, and he practices, and then he dies at the age of 35, he may go to the high heaven instead of the low heaven.
Sure, because
there's a big difference there.
Because you have a chance of to go to also.
This is a big if.
Yes.
Yes, but to answer Mehdi's question in more detail, we're required to make the decision before the age of 40. So how are we going to make a decision if we don't know about the prayers and the fasting and actually practice them? You have to practice.
You have time to investigate.
Yeah.
If you miss a prayer, we feel bad and we feel like we're committing some sort of sin. But if anyone under 40, I mean, it's not that much pressure on you.
Sure. Fine.
Sometimes too lazy to get up for it.
Yeah, but you're assuming that the person knows that he or she will die before 40.
But the reason basically I'm asking because in Iran and some other countries they put such limited age on, like girls, I guess they're supposed to start praying at 9, and boys at 14 or 15, or something like that. Yeah, they have this.
Oh, see, well, this is different.
They have no basis, and basically that's why.
Yeah, well, in the Sunni world, the age is 5, and you beat them at 7. This is the hadith.
You beat them at 7?
Yes, you say teach your kids to pray at the age of 5 and beat them up at the age of 7. To pray. Who's laughing? Are you sniffing? It's true. Say, مروا أبنائكم, you know this hadith, right? مروا أبنائكم بالصلاة ل5 سنين وضربوهم عليها ل7 سنين. Is it 7 or 10?
10.
10? Okay, 10 years. Beat them when they reach 10.
So they can beat you back.
But you look at like the kids here, and they look like they look like they're enjoying praying, and they know they should, but
They don't know anything. This don't they know. They have to be there. It's natural for them. It's like
they
eating,
look like they
drinking,
enjoy it too.
go to the bathroom.
You see how Hani runs to the prayer? I didn't even give him candy. You have to go get the candy. I forgot. He's not going for the candy. Say, obey God and obey the messenger. If they refuse, then he is responsible for his obligations, and you are responsible for your obligations. If you obey him, you will be guided. The sole duty of the messenger is to deliver the message. So the criterion of obeying the messenger is whatever he's saying must be in the Quran, must be backed up by what God is saying. If it is not in the Quran, it's your obligation to disobey. Actually, in this same surah, it says that. So the reason God is saying obey God and obey the messenger is that because the messenger conveys the word of God to the message.
Okay, excuse me, somebody asked me about the what happened if, okay, we believe in Rashad, messenger of God, but what happened if he's human and he says something in mistake? And Alhamdulillah, I showed them he did, and I explained, okay, if you're right and he is mistake, he is responsible for answer to God. But you have God said you have to obey him. Either if you think maybe, you know, this is right, man.
Yes, yes. In other words, if in the day of judgment say, what did you believe that the age of 40 is this or that? Say, well, I believe your messenger. Then that will be an excuse. If I'm making a mistake, it will be my responsibility.
At the last line it says the sole duty of messenger is to deliver the message. So you can realize easily who is the real messenger.
Okay, God's promise, kings and queens on earth. One of the most important verses in the Quran. God promises, which means it's done, those among you who believe and lead a righteous life, that He will make them sovereigns on earth, as He did for those before them, and will establish for them the religion He has chosen for them, and will substitute peace and security for them in place of fear. All this because they worship Me alone, without setting up an idol beside Me. Those who disbelieve after this are the truly wicked. What more can we say? The believers have no fear and no greed. No fear, no greed.
Can I ask one more time what exactly righteous life? Because you did it last time in my place, but I was with my kids.
Yeah, righteous means abide by the Quran's commandments and the prohibitions. Very simple. And God gave us a very simple things to do.
At the first verses in Sura 2, three categories of people: righteous, hypocrites.
Yes.
Juma would reply to both submitters, Muslim and Mormon, believer, submitter and believer.
Yes.
I guess one who becomes a believer will be able to appreciate this verse.
Right.
How does one know what one has reached that stage?
If there is no more doubt,
No more doubt.
then you're a believer. The difference between a Muslim and a mu'min is the doubt. That's the only difference. So a Muslim is a person who believes in God, believes in the hereafter, leads a righteous life, does all the commandments and the prohibitions, but there are lingering doubts once in a while. When all these doubts are gone, then the person is a believer, a mu'min. Surah 49. Finds the Muslim and the mu'min. Surah 49:11. Yeah.
You were discussing insurances. You were saying there's always something like, as you said, a lingering doubt. I mean, when are you protected? When you're a Muslim or when you're a Mormon, basically? So you're sure that God will protect you if you don't have insurance.
Right. It takes a believer. It takes a person. When we do the prayer, yes. When we come back to the prayer, I'll give you candy. When you say Allahu Akbar, then you pray. You thought you're the smartest one, right? It's okay. Yeah, it takes a believer to know that he or she has insurance with God, and a solid believer. By the way, God tells us how to attain this certainty. It's at the end of Surah 15. It's the last verse. Surah 15, which is 99. You add that to the number of the Surah, you have 114. Which makes it very important. Page 267. It says, worship your Lord in order to attain certainty. So, a Muslim will do the 5 prayers, fast the month of Ramadan, and so on, and this is how he or she will attain certainty. All the doubts will be gone. Also, one of the functions of the miracle of Quran is to establish certainty, remove all doubts. So a person who understands the miracle of Quran will have no doubt. Right.
That's if they just understand the miracle,
Yes.
then all doubt is.
That's right. This is at 74:31, where it says to remove all doubt from the hearts of the believers, even the Christians and Jews.
Now understand some headlines of your Muslim perspective that this, you have some new discovery.
Yes.
You have a headline that they have discovered.
Yes.
And the important thing is whether they understand or not.
Exactly.
If they understand, they will.
I think the only way to remind as a believer not practice to read the Quran all the time. We said some people said we believe you, then they change their mind. Because exactly like I was before. I was Muslim, I pray occasionally, I can read the Quran, so after a while I forgot everything. So that's why they say we believe you as a messenger, you are true really. But they have no practice, so they
Exactly.
Rashad, could you please explain the word Muslim and believer? Because the Quran says, don't say that you are Muslim, you are...
Don't say you're mu'min, say you're until all doubts are gone. The difference between a Muslim and a mu'min is the doubt. Doubt. If there is doubt, the person is not a mu'min yet.
Rashad, is that right that as soon as we attain...
But that's not, excuse me, that's not bad. It just means that the person is inching towards being a believer. It's like we're born babies first. You can't be born an adult. No, you have to be a baby first. And this concept of born again Christian is true. You know, you can be a born again Muslim, but when you're born again, you're a baby, and you have to accept the fact that you must grow and develop slowly until you attain that stage of adulthood or maturity, certainty.
Because we have a discussion that they say, okay, a lot of people they say we are believers, believing in God, but they are not Muslims, believing in God.
Yes, God says don't say that.
No, they are Mormons. They are not Mormons.
No.
They believe, but they haven't submitted.
Yes.
That's the difference.
Isn't there a word stronger than believe in English? Certain? But it's not applied, it's not used in the language. Like say, a person can say, I believe, and say, the other can say, I'm certain.
I'm certain.
I know.
I know.
Yeah.
Trust God. I trust. I'm certain. I'm certain. Beyond the benefit of it.
I have to invent new vocabulary.
Because when they say believe, don't say I am Muslim, they believe. And they say we are believers, we are believing in God, but we are not believing in Muhammad. We are not Muslims.
But I think that the word submit should distinguish that, because if they say we believe, then we can question them, have you submitted to the Quran also? Have you, and when they say we have submitted, that means that they should be following the Quran.
Yes. I guess when a person says I submit, this means I apply to admit to be admitted to first grade. So I'm going to sit and be a student. You know. And when you go to a class, so we are admitted into a class, we sit there and we listen to the teacher. So we submit, God being our teacher. Then we read the textbook, see what it says. Who's making noise over there? Who's the noisy kid? MashaAllah.
As you say, Rashad, as soon as we get certainty, we attain certainty, then we are a moment, right?
Yes.
And at this case, our test will be finished, and everything will be smooth and good.
Yes. Yes.
Everything is fine. No.
Yeah, as soon as you attain certainty, is that right?
Yes, everything will be all right. Yes. Even if you go apply for a job and you don't get it, you'll understand.
Oh, okay. I see what you're saying. Okay, I see what you're saying.
Actually, when like right now, alhamdulillah, I do like 99% like pray on time and everything, and I do my chances. And when I got the problems, I got a little bit uncomfortable. So I opened the Quran. Alhamdulillah, God said, like in one of the verses, was saying that, like, take it easy. At this point, God is purifying.
That's exactly what's happening.
Yeah, so you might.
Just like your dream. To answer a question, as I read 55 again. 55.
At the same Surah 24, that
Right
is
there,
reading, 55. God promises those among you who believe and live a righteous life that He will make them
Sovereigns.
sovereign.
Means kings
on
and
earth.
queens.
Right.
Just one word for it, instead of two words.
Right. As He did for those before them, and will establish for them the religion He has chosen for them, and will substitute peace and security for them in place of fear. All this because they worship me alone, without setting up any idol besides me.
Does this answer your question?
Pardon?
Does this answer your question?
Yes.
Yeah. Substitute peace and security in place of fear. Everything will be all right.
What about Surah 22, verse 15, where it says happiness now forever? We let go everything and just depend on God alone. And it doesn't matter what happens. It doesn't bother you.
Yes.
You just accept this the way God wants it.
Unless you want to follow some other translation, then you hang yourself.
Yeah.
It's true. They hang themselves. 22:15 is the verse where it's translated unanimously in all the other translations as, if you don't believe that God can help you in this world and forever, hang yourself. Really?
Yeah.
That's what he's
saying.
I thought you knew that.
Yeah, I know. Because it, well, in the
Okay, Cecilia, you have to read it for us then.
But in the advertisement for the cross, you
Huh?
have that
Thank
verse.
God I never saw that.
Really?
In the pamphlet for
Oh.
the
I
cross.
would have hung myself for it. I hung myself for it. Let me see. Oh, you like this, don't you?
There are several different interpretations on this, all of them funny from each other.
Yes.
The other one says, let him go to sky and open a hole from the sky. Look at this.
Must be Ibn Kathir.
No, this is Mawdudi.
Mawdudi, yes.
Pakistan.
Well, this is a contemporary
Really
Mufassir.
funny.
He's more sophisticated.
This is hilarious.
This is modern.
But this is really good to show people how it's really been
This is
mistranslated.
hilarious.
This is wonderful.
If any thinks that God will not help him, his apostle, in this world and the hereafter, let him stretch out a rope to the ceiling and cut himself off. Then let him see whether his plan will remove that which enrages him.
After he's
Okay,
dead,
now, let us say you're a very careful person who wants to follow the Quran to the letter.
I'm dead. I'm dead. Wait, I'm finished.
Just read it carefully and see what he is trying to tell you and do it. Because it's important. This is God's message to you.
I'll be dead. I would have committed suicide.
That's
All right?
Yeah.
Good God.
Rashad, what did I do? No, I criticized their okay, all Turkish people.
Yes, how dare you?
Translated this way. After my critics, I told them, to these translators, I said, if you think that you are right, now I challenge you, you help yourself and then think either you are right or not.
Now, can I read yours? Can I read yours?
Yes.
If anyone thinks that God cannot support him in this life and in the hereafter, then let him turn completely to his Creator in heaven and sever the dependency on anyone else. He will then see that this plan eliminates anything that bothers him. I mean, that is so clear. And it's real.
That's the message of the Quran.
In the context, read from the words above and all.
Yeah, it is in context.
Is this?
This is out of context.
And it makes no sense at all.
Not at all. It won't work.
Brought their idols, Muhammad and their...
Yes, yeah, they put Muhammad
no
as their entity.
mention of Muhammad.
There's nothing, it has nothing to do with Muhammad.
It has nothing to do with Muhammad
But they
at
put
all.
them in there too.
Because even the ayat before is talking about God admitting the believers and leading them into, they being led into a righteous life. It has nothing to do with Muhammad.
كنت قاعدة في الكرسي ده؟ كنت قاعدة في الكرسي ولا لا؟ Okay, well, we'll go back to work and we'll see inshallah for Salat al-Asr.
Here's your pillow, it's
I did. I was vice president of the Sunni Mosque. Then one day I told them not to follow Hadith and Sunnah, so I found that sign he's saying for sale, so I asked and I bought it.
What can be able to here there is no something more here. For the I think there must be a little job. For example, something extra bathroom or this bathroom or something like that.
We're doing it bit by bit. We expanded it. The mosque was only up to here.
Yeah.
And then we added this part. So we keep expanding.
It's not going to
But I think we need the new expansion soon, inshallah.
It's getting there.
Last Friday we couldn't find a place to sit down.
You're going to see feet walking across.
I'm pretty sure, inshallah, we'll take the whole block, this whole block, and we'll build it.
Inshallah. Inshallah.
But
All of us
we should do something.
Rashad,
We are.
may go and invade the other mosque. There's a new mosque.
No, I checked it out and the direction of Qibla is wrong, so I said, well, we'll not take it.
Really? Is it wrong?
Yes, Qibla, they look in northeast. Yes. They designed the whole thing looking at northeast.
It's a zero.
Yes.
Here in the magnetic north.
Either that or we can just, if you can move it, we'll do it.
Giant crane.
They one side and I did another side of the thing.
Yes.
Only the land is a problem. The building is not expensive. Fortunately, here the land is just expensive as
Where? Here in Tucson?
Yeah,
No,
somewhere.
it's not expensive here.
Land,
Besides, nothing is expensive for God. Like Carl Sagan says, God has billions and billions. Yes, he mimics Carl Sagan.
That's how he says it too.
Which mosque is the one on Speedway?
Ahmadiyya.
How many mosques are there in Tucson?
How many? 3. Ahmadiyya. How many mosques?
One.
Yeah, 3 mosques. I thought how many Ahmadiyyas are there?
How many are there?
Also 3 Ahmadiyyas. 2 of them enforce it. Actually, this is a surgeon, an anesthetist, not a surgeon, who's making a lot of money and needs Ahmadiyya, and it's good for his IRS taxes. So he built a mosque and imported 2 guys to take care of it from Pakistan. So there are 3 of them here.
Last night somebody asked me if I'm in the street and I have to do my prayer, and the mosque that does not belong to only God. And can I go there and
No.
pray? I said no, you cannot do this.
Because there is a direct commandment saying don't, in a very strong way, لا تقم فيه أبدا.
This is the last place that you go there.
Yes.
You cannot find any place.
Right.
You have to go there.
Is it after the bathroom? After the bathroom?
Huh? No.
Automatically, I don't go there anymore.
Because if you go there and worship, you accept the
What they're
place
doing.
as a worship place.
9108.
It's actually a house of Satan. Will you go in the house of Satan to pray?
No?
Because in Surah 9, really the commandment is very strong.
Yeah.
I used to be not sure. And then when I read this verse over and over, it says, لا تقم فيه أبدا. Do not ever.
Yes, so you shall
Do not
never.
ever
You
pray.
shall never pray in such a mosque.
I tried, they didn't believe some of them. MashaAllah, I did just
Yeah.
open this verse, it's very clear, nobody
Yes.
can
talking. About the kids that we were talking, I have a sign, inshallah, like God is my witness that I'm not lying. The first time with I met Dr. Khalifa, Malkan was maybe 3 or 4 months. And at that age, the kid doesn't talk, and he said 3 or 4 times like Allah, Allah. And then I forgot all about that. Last time when Dr. Khalifa came to our place, and he had lunch with us, and then the first group left to Paivash place. And I went with my kids and Muhammad to Paivash house. In the way we were so excited that Muhammad started saying Allah, Allah, like he was trying zikring while he was driving. And God is my witness, I'm not lying. He tried, and he tried in my arms, he knows it. He pushed and said Allah, Allah, and then I didn't say anything. I was afraid. I tell Muhammad that, then Muhammad said, oh, Vicky, don't say it. I was just thinking, and then he turned at me and said, did you hear? He's trying to say Allah.
Yes.
Three times.
Translation.
I think that's why, like, the kids should,
Oh, they start very early. Yes, I was just imagining. I was not joking. 1 week. Then it turns out in their mother's womb they're listening to the Quran. They're Baroni kids.
Yeah, mashallah.
Yes.
They wanted Parivash's recording.
Ilahi also.
Ilahi, yes.
Ilahi all the time.
Jahan was saying when he was saying zikr in his sleep, Allah, Allah.
In his sleep? Yeah. This it's amazing. Francisco sleeps here, and then I go to wake him up for Fajr. And here is a Chinese Mexican guy. Okay, you wake up and he says, "La ilaha illallah wahdahu la sharika lahu." What's going on here? It's Francisco, yes. I take it up as Fajr prayer, but it's really fantastic. Because you don't think when you're getting up from your sleep.
Yeah.
Your brain is still asleep. In fact, when they interrogate prisoners, if they want to hear the truth, they wake them up and ask them immediately a question. Where's your army camping? 3 blocks from here. What did you say?
No control.
They cannot manipulate their brain.
One day my brother was in the army and he came home and he was really, he wants to go to like one of my friends, a neighbor, to bring him to another city because it was very difficult. And he was asleep at the room, and I went to my neighbor, and he said, okay, bring him to talk with me, maybe and I went and I said,